Researchers in Israel say they have succeeded in growing a date palm from a seed that is 2,000 years old. They've even nicknamed the baby date palm Methuselah after a biblical figure said to have lived for nearly 1,000 years. The researchers say the palm that has sprung from the seed has already grown to 30 centimeters. It was unearthed during an excavation at the ancient mountain fortress of Masada some 30 years ago and is thought to be the oldest seed ever germinated. While touching and cuddling the seedling like a proud mother, Dr. Elaine Soloway, who is credited with the germination, explained the technique she used in order to revive the 2,000-year seed. She said she soaked them in warm water, treated them with gibberellic acid, which causes any part of the seed embryo that is still alive to grow. The first leaves of this date were very normal. They were quite flat and quite pale. They only seemed to get their full amount of chlorophyll later. The most recent leaf is now totally normal looking. They're hoping this tree will continue to grow exactly as it is now. The researchers' achievement may turn out to be more significant than simply bringing an ancient seed back to life. They've now sent some of its leaves off for DNA analysis with the hope it might have medicinal properties that are missing in modern cultivated varieties. The streets of London, full of rush hour traffic like cities and towns all over the world. For babies and young children, they're a constant hazard. Youngsters sit on a level with the exhaust pipes of passing cars, buses and trucks, exposed to harmful fumes. Children are particularly vulnerable to pollution because their lungs are forming. Asthma and other breathing difficulties are common. Help may be at hand though. A British company has developed the Apollo Baby Sphere, a pushchair it claims removes 99% of particulate pollution. Not only exhaust fumes, but pollen, dust, smoke, and diesel particulates that have been linked to breathing problems. Baby Sphere General Manager Paul Herring developed a unique air filtration system and then looked at ways of applying it to a marketable product. The disposable filter lasts for 100 hours. These new and used filters show how much dirty air passes through. The see-through canopy is also said to protect children from the harmful effects of the sun's rays. And Baby Sphere says the buggy has been subjected to a barrage of tests, even in desert conditions. The incidence of asthma has grown enormously over the last 50 years. For parents prepared to spend £300 or more to enclose their children in a sealed bubble, the makers of Baby Sphere claim their buggy will protect them against the prevailing elements. Described in legend as flowing from a source near the Garden of Eden, the Tigris River is now choking with modern-day pollution that researchers say puts millions of Iraqis at risk. A little way downstream, a torrent of sewage gushes into the river as it flows through the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. A stench like rotten eggs wafts through the air. Environmentalists say Iraqi's government must clean up the river that provides drinking water for Baghdad and much of southern Iraq. They say risks should not be overlooked. It's a huge challenge as waterborne diseases drift downstream with raw sewage and industrial waste that may prove even more toxic. At first, gently flowing waters flanked by banks of reeds might seem like a haven from the traffic jams that often snarl Baghdad. But the river's appearance belies the unsavory contents. Bara Sharaf al-Din, a government official, uses a surgical glove when dipping sampling bottles into the water. Waste from a medical complex is gurgled into the water further downstream, creating an aroma like raw fish and filling the water with black globules and flecks of scum. Further on, sewage represented the biggest problem, surging almost untreated into the water from pipe after gaping pipe. It wasn't always that way. Researchers say when Saddam Hussein ran Iraq, funds that would normally go to helping the Tigris were diverted to the army. Environmentalists say they are working as fast as they can to fix sewage pipes, runoff from power stations that belch black smoke. Heavy metals found in the water have raised concerns they may enter food and perhaps cause cancers in humans. Environmentalists say they will take samples from different places, take them to analyse them, and see what the degree of the pollution actually is in the Tigris River. Plunging under the olive green surface of the Tigris, worshippers from an obscure sect emerge spurting water from their mouths. Shrugging off the concerns of the environmentalists, white-robed worshippers of the Sabia Mandaean nation, a relic of the ancient Gnostic religions, take their weekly dip in the Tigris to purify their souls. "8848, the world's biggest panorama, opened in the eastern German city of Leipzig, referring to Mount Everest's height. On the premises of a disused gas storage tank, Berlin-based artist and architect Yadigar Assisi, of Persian origin, created a 360-degree panorama, allowing the visitor a breathtaking view of the Himalayan mountains. Assisi admitted he knew nothing about Mount Everest prior to this project, but said he liked the idea because he had been thinking about doing a panorama for some time, using a 1-to-1 scale effect. It was obvious that the tallest mountain should get the biggest panorama. Assisi said he wanted to convey to visitors the illusion that they were standing in front of the great Mount Everest. A few days before the opening, a Nepalese Sherpa set a record for the fastest ascent of Mount Everest by reaching the top of the world's highest mountain in 12 hours and 45 minutes. This record came a week before the 50th anniversary of the first ascent of Everest by Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. It was also achieved on the same route those two had pioneered. Pemba Dorje Sherpa, a 25-year-old guide, started from base camp at 5,350 meters on the Thursday and reached the summit by Friday morning. Normally, climbers take about a week to get from base camp to the top of the 8,850 meter mountain. The previous record was 16 hours and 56 minutes, set 3 years before by another Sherpa, Babu Chiri. He died in 2001 on another climb of Everest. New Zealander Sir Edmund Hillary was the guest of honour at a series of events in the Nepali capital, Kathmandu. Sherpa Tenzing Norgay died in 1986. 1,200 climbers have reached the Everest summit, and 175 have died trying. The fast-developing riverfront in London's Docklands is the prime site for a new idea in high-rise living. This is Sky House, so far only a model, but the idea is to make up London's shortfall in affordable housing with high-density, high-rise apartment blocks. But without the tatty facilities, broken-down lifts, and windy stairwells of the tower blocks built in the 1960s. Architect Julia Barfield says they've added things that wouldn't normally be available with a flat, like a gym, sometimes a swimming pool, or even the Sky Gardens. They've added elements that they hope will add to the quality of people's lives, but also promote a sense of community within the building. Combining housing with shops, health clubs and gardens, the Sky House will use renewable energy, insulation and recycling technology to provide a greener living space. All the energy costs for the Sky Gardens, the lifts, lighting and ventilating the car park, heating the swimming pool, would actually be taken care of by renewable energy resources. In this way, they can keep the service charges down. A rare sight in Britain's countryside, deer roaming free without fear of being hunted or killed by marksmen. These deer are on land being developed by the charity Working for Wildlife in the southwest of England. Those behind it say there's a passion in Britain to preserve the countryside. Because of the increasing loss of countryside, the charity is planning a number of projects to educate people to use their own gardens to create wildlife habitats. The charity has the support of many actors and artists across the country who are connected to animal conservation through the League Against Cruel Sports. Working with Wildlife hopes its projects and education programs will help bring back lost species to the British countryside, while helping others develop habitats in their own gardens as wildlife sanctuaries. It looks like any other hatchback, but this car is powered by electricity. Scientists here at the University of Southampton are developing the hybrid electric petrol car. While most electric vehicles have a range of about 50 miles, this one has been designed to travel much further. The new car is targeted at the urban driver because of the advantage it has over standard petrol cars. On the open road, it reaches speeds of 70 miles per hour. It's easy to control and more environmentally friendly than petrol vehicles. The scientists say the advantages are the vehicle is quite light. You have good weight distribution because you can put the engine and the battery wherever you like. That means you can use this car without power steering. And you will have a smooth drive, especially in urban areas. Development of the vehicle is continuing, and it's hoped that in years to come, this will become the cleaner, more environmentally friendly way to travel around town. Muscovites trapped in the smog-clogged city flocked to the beach for a cool dip as they sweated out the hottest summer the capital had seen in 5 years. The temperature reached 32 degrees Celsius on this day, the highest since July 1996. And according to the Federal Weather Service at the time, no relief was in sight for the next 4 to 5 days, when temperatures were forecast to peak at 34 degrees Celsius and sink below 30 at the start of the next week. This temperature, though, was 4 degrees away from the all-time high of 36.5 registered in Moscow in 1938. Many Muscovites with country houses have long fled the city. Those who have stayed are turning to the beaches in the city or any water they can find. However, the heat wave was actually having less effect on animals. Polar bears residing at the zoo were even enjoying lying in the sun. Many of the animals had never seen such temperatures in their natural environment. Those who visited the zoo said there was no alternative but to just drink water all day long. Most of the animals in Moscow Zoo, though, seem to easily adjust to the high temperatures. Heavy snow continued to fall in the Afghanistan capital, Kabul. Airport authorities cancelled all domestic and international flights in and out of Kabul on this day due to poor visibility. And dozens of relatives were waiting outside in the cold, hoping there would be a change in the schedule. Many of them were expecting loved ones to come home from the annual Hajj pilgrimage in Mecca. It had been 2 days of heavy snow. Avalanches had hit the country's key Salang tunnel. Authorities said they were trying to clear snow that had blocked the entrances of this 2.7 kilometre long tunnel which connects the capital with the northern regions. At an altitude of over 3,000 metres, Salang is a key artery in winter that links south of Afghanistan with the north and beyond to Central Asia. A century ago, the land around rural Herangyangtang in Hebei province, 130 kilometres northwest of Beijing, sustained a small but thriving community of farmers and livestock. Today, this land lies abandoned. The once rich pasture land has been swallowed up by tons of sand following decades of agricultural overuse and deforestation. Now, there are no farmers and no livestock. Only 100 square kilometres of sand dunes, which are edging closer to Beijing each year. It's part of a growing swathe of northern China that is turning rapidly to desert. More than 17% of China's total landmass is now desert, with more than 2,000 kilometres of land swallowed up by its sand each year in the decade between 85 and 95. This problem became so serious that delegates to China's National People's Congress urged the introduction of emergency laws to help combat desertification. It's an issue Beijing can no longer ignore. The capital is being buffeted by over 13 sandstorms in 1 year. Shan Zhaojiang is heading a project aimed at holding back the desert by creating a green Great Wall in northern China, the first line of defence against the increasing threat posed by sandstorms. Phase 1 has already been completed in Herangyangtang, where the desert covers 100 square kilometres. Trees and grassland has been cultivated on a small section of the desert, with plans to expand the project in the years to come. According to the World Bank, desertification in China is a byproduct of the country's breakneck pace of development. Robert Crooks of the World Bank says the planned reforestation of desert areas may not be the solution. In Herangyangtang, local officials are preparing for the next phase of the greening of the sand dunes, drilling wells for water to help sustain trees and grassland that will be planted here. This museum in Wales is a demonstration of the progress the Welsh have made over centuries. The 21st Century House demonstrates how the Welsh see themselves living more in harmony with nature. The museum stands in the grounds of the magnificent St Fagan's Castle, a late 16th century manor house generously donated to the people of Wales by the Earl of Plymouth. The 100-acre parkland has over 30 original buildings, moved from various parts of Wales, and re-erected to show how the people of Wales lived at various times in history. With the focus nowadays on living in a more sustainable way and putting as little stress on the environment as possible, this museum shows how the Welsh have changed their way of life. This museum is one of Europe's foremost open-air museums and shows how the people of Wales lived, worked and spent their leisure time over the last 500 years. the United Kingdom's Transport Minister pressed the button to start the new freight initiative on the country's canal system. This opening scheme would move almost 500,000 tonnes of sand and gravel along the Grand Union Canal, saving 45,000 lorry movements on roads coming into West London. Infrastructure and environmental constraints have made this project more difficult, but engineers have successfully overcome them to transport the sand and gravel off land and onto specially designed barges. For well over 30 years, the UK canal system has been used mostly for leisure. Now British Waterways chiefs believe this initiative could have a major impact on the way freight is moved across the United Kingdom. With government backing and funding, it's hoped freight transport could breathe new commercial life back into the famous canal network. The London-based International Water Association is distributing simple-to-use testing kits to help people get a better picture of the state of the water they use. The kits can detect the oxygen level, acidity and temperature of the water, as well as how muddy it is. This gives a quick idea of how clean the water is to drink and whether there is any organic pollution, for example, from a nearby factory or farm. Groups from 20 countries are getting involved in this first monitoring day, which the organisers hope will become an annual event. Testing for the presence of heavy metals and chemicals in water is beyond the scope of this community-based water testing initiative. But these kits put a powerful, if basic, tool into the hands of local people to take action themselves. It's hoped that they will press their government to act to improve the state of this vital public resource.